to this special edition of Voice of Impact, where we explore how today's leaders think about how the next generation can be empowered through the leadership and their journey. My name is Farzad. I'm the lecturer in digital marketing at Berlin School of Business and Innovation. And with me is my co-moderator, Bennett. Today we have two honorable guests, actually three, which I ask Bennett to introduce them.
Perfect. So, first of all, we have Aditi Masi. She's also the Assistant Vice President for Learning, Design and Development with Deutsche Bank.
Yeah.
A passionate learning and development expert with over 15 years of experience in her industry, and also building strong cultures, driving capability development, and also designing impactful learning journeys for professionals in the market. Along with her, we have today Sandra Kanar, who is also a podcast co-host as well. And we'll talk about that over through the podcast. And along with that, she's also a team's performance coach, who is also Viennese, Berliner by choice, a team coach, and also a team building enthusiast with new working expert, and also a really renowned way of talking. She has this thing called solopreneur, and that's what she's known for. And along with her, we have a special accompany, Friedi. Friedi is right down there to have an attention seeker for this podcast with us today.
Thank you. Well, first of all, for the icebreaker, I want to ask both of you, what is that one piece of advice that you wish somebody had given you in the beginning of your career journey? We started with Aditi and then Sandra.
Sure. I think it's a very interesting question to reflect on after 15 years of experience, to be very honest. But I feel I wish someone would have told me the importance of art of networking and small talks at the beginning of my career. Everyone told me to focus on learning, which is true. I am still learning even after 15 years, but I think the game changer of my career was when I started building connections and network with people around. And it was not just at the level of where I was. I started connecting with people who were below my level, like junior folks, the managers, the leaders. And I got a very different perspective about business after that. So earlier, I was just focusing on my role, but later on, I got an organizational perspective that what organization is, where do I fit in, how can I contribute in the overall development of the organization, and how I need to evolve my role in order to provide that accomplishment to the organization. So I think I'm going to just pass on the wisdom to everyone that focus on learning, but also focus on your art of networking as well as your small talks.
Well, we're lucky to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sandra?
Actually, I had a couple of seconds to think about the question, and to be honest, I got all of the advices that you were naming and so many more. So I think there was not this specific advice, because to be honest, if I think back 10, 15 years, I actually didn't want to listen to them because I felt like I know it anyway, so I'm going to do it my way. And so probably this is the best advice that I could give now. Take the advices, think about them, try them out, and decide on yourselves whether you like it or not. Yeah. Probably this is what I took with me. And yes, definitely, networking is key.
So you meant customization.
Customization, and also sometimes if you hear an advice and it feels like, I'm not sure if that's going to help, nevertheless, try it out and see whether it's going to be something for you or not. You can then decide yourself.
Very interesting. Can I ask about, can you give us an example of that?
For example, I used to work in a corporate company, like a real big one. This was basically my first employer back then. Directly out of my studies, I had an internship there, and then I did some part-time studies there, and then I was fully employed there. So my life was very much corporate-based. And in corporates, sometimes there's boundaries, of course, right?
Yeah.
And people always kept telling me, Sandra, try to fit in a little more because then things are going to be easier and you don't have to go the hard way, go the easier way. And I was like, well, okay, thanks for the advice. I'm gonna give it a try to fit in. And this did not work out at all. So really not. And I decided to just go my way. And even though it was probably not easiest all the time, I felt like, thanks for telling me. And probably yes, for the one or the other person, this would have been the number one key advice.
Yeah.
But for me, it was not.
Always have your notebook with you
Yeah.
to take notes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Probably.
Yeah.
So, Aditi, well, you mentioned 15 years of experience. First of all, I want to know what has changed during this course of 15 years of experience, especially post-pandemic, regarding leadership.
Okay, lovely. I think pandemic has changed everything, not just from a corporate perspective, but also from a human perspective. And I see a vast transformation in terms of leadership as well now. If I talk about leadership in the pre-pandemic era time, it was more focused on control. It was focused on managing things. But the definition of leadership is absolutely different today because it's more related to showcasing empathy towards people, fostering trust, creating that psychological safety between the employees so that they are able to come forward and share their thoughts and opinions. The leaders are expected to be a little more flexible and agile and sensitive towards the needs of the people. I still remember DEI, which is diversity, equity and inclusion. It used to be just one of the HR initiatives in our time. But it's no more the same. The game has changed altogether. The leaders are expected to be the allies and the champions of DEI. They are expected to showcase their inclusivity through their behaviors, their vocabs, their decision making, their thought process and all their approach. And I believe in today's time, the biggest change has been a journey for all of us is the technology. And leaders are expected to do the same. They are expected to be fluent in their digital learning, be it AI, cyber security, any kind of a digital collaboration. They are expected to be fluent. They are expected to leverage that technology and embed it as part of the process and bring the game of the business up.
Interesting. Is the same thing in Deutsche Bank as well?
Oh yes, yes, it is.
Digitalization.
Absolutely.
So
So
how
we are
it
still
impacts-
moving towards digitalization.
Perfect, but
Yeah.
how this impacts the leadership point of view or perspective nowadays? Like it's post-pandemic
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
I want to know, like based on your experience in Deutsche Bank, well, you had that experience pre-pandemic, now post-pandemic, you're working in a European country, Deutsche Bank, well, it's, it's a legend here in Germany. I want to know that, well, how digitalization has influence on this perspective, leadership.
So I think I'll come from the client perspective first. Clients expect you to deliver them as soon as possible. And with this technological change, there's a lot of pressure on the industry as well. And when we are in the position of delivering something, digitalization and technology is giving a very different viewpoint to the leadership as well in terms of their approach. Now, earlier, what used to happen is that they used to think about the vision from the overall perspective, like global standpoint. But now what they think is that how can we embed and include the latest technology in delivering the best of the solutions to our client. And that's where the difference of approach in their decision making as well as the strategy has come into place.
Interesting. So the name of the game is efficiency or customer care or like the transformation towards having a better relationship with the clients.
Absolutely.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So better relationship.
Better relationship.
But then digitalization from the internal perspective, how that changed in Deutsche Bank?
So I think we as the bank, we are moving towards 3 core values, which is efficiency, effectiveness and experience. And we want to focus our strategies towards that. All our decision making process is based on how can we provide the best experience to the client. And when I say client, our internal client as well as external clients. So our internal clients is our employees. How can we ensure that we are providing them the best experience of learning, best experience to grow within the organization, and how can they further go and deliver it to the audience. Same goes with our efficiency in terms of processes, automating all the processes using digital tools, right? Of course, we are from the banking industry. There are certain restrictions that we need to follow because a lot of data has been on stake, right? So what we try to do is we try to design something internally. So that the data is also secure, but at the same time, we are providing that effectiveness and efficiency in delivering it to the customers.
Right. We always talk about this in class for the branding practices, which we have like internal environment and external environment. Both are important because if your employee is somehow like having a challenge going through the processes with the company, will have that bad effect on your brand perspective and brand image, as if you're treating a customer in that sense, not taking care of the challenge there and the problem. Thank you for that.
I have a question with Sandra.
For Sandra, absolutely, yes.
Sandra, 12minutes.me, an inspiring initiative. And you create a platform where people can come in and network and get inspiration out of it. Why do you think a professional building platform or a community building platform is very essential for building future leaders?
Also, very good question, just like all of them. I really love them, I have to say this. With regards to community building networking, we just had this before. Well, probably let me start 12 Minutes Me. It's a after-work networking platform where actually all of us are volunteers who share one passion, bringing together people and making them learn something together and connect with each other. That is basically the plan of 12 Minutes. And 12 Minutes is spread all over Europe, basically, and I'm responsible for the Berlin city, basically. And we do this on a very regular basis, like once a month, more or less. In 2025, it's only like once a quarter, but more or less it's on a regular basis. And we bring together people who are very much interested in two topics. Number one, sustainability, or number two, people and culture topics. So we always have like one topic focused evening where we invite 3 speakers, and all of the 3 speakers have 12 minutes time to present themselves, to present their idea, to present their company. And after those 12 minutes, they have 12 minutes for questions and answers. Yes. And after those 12 minutes questions and answers, we're gonna have 12 minutes of free networking. And just because we have this setup, it's clear that there is this LED networking part, where it's our responsibility more or less to bring people together, just to make it easier to connect. Because of course, sometimes it's the case that there's shy people, there's people who don't know how to really make connections, and we as a team basically take care of them. And not only during this evening, but we try to build this community so that everybody is aware of whenever 12 Minutes takes place in Berlin, we're gonna meet each other, and we're gonna basically develop each other. We're gonna learn from each other. And there's been like tremendously cool stories, success stories, which came out of it, because sometimes people are looking for jobs, others are searching for somebody who's looking for a job. Yeah. Sometimes there is ideas that are being evolved over 12 minutes. And this is something which basically gives me so much energy, which is why I love it so much to spend my spare time there, basically.
Well, in that scenario, both of you are working towards developing talents. And now Aditi being in the corporate sector and Sandra being in the entrepreneurial environment. So why do you think what are the biggest gaps when we have to be in for preparing future leaders? What are the gaps which are out there which we could fill in to build up the next generation of leaders in the market?
So I think from the corporate standpoint, I still see there is a lot of gap in building our internal talent. One major reason being that one of the reasons is the lack of opportunities. We expect everyone to behave like a leader, but we do not provide them opportunities, platforms, or delegating authority, or even giving them accountability to showcase their leadership style, right? So I feel that one area that, one gap which is there is the amount of opportunity that we provide. Secondly, couple of months back, I was reading one of the surveys and research, and I read that 5% of the managers feel that the leadership program these days are not effective. So imagine the huge gap. People moving from individual contributor role to a people management role, there's a huge difference. You might be a great manager, but you are a good leader, it's a big question mark.
Sure.
And in order to make you a good leader from a good manager, there are a lot of skills which someone needs to learn, especially people management skills. How do you manage people? How do you deal with people? How do you resolve conflicts? How do you manage their emotions? There is so much of mentoring and coaching going on. You need to give feedback to people. Not everybody take feedback positively, but how do you take that forward? So I feel this is another factor which brings a lot of gap. We need to, as an organization, we need to put in more efforts, more cost in developing effective and efficient leadership programs. I also feel there is a gap in succession planning and talent pipeline. I still see organizations are frequently investing money in hiring people from outside rather than building our internal talent. They are ready to pay huge cost from hiring people outside and then of course training them, and within the span of 1 year they leave once they are trained. It's better to put in money in building the internal talent rather than people hiring outside. Give them opportunity to come forward and at the early stage. For example, if people are as an individual contributor, but they are aspiring to be leaders tomorrow, give them ample amount of opportunities and learning from the initial stage itself, so that they can come up and take up the leadership roles. So I feel these are the three factors, these three gaps that we as in corporate, I guilty, we take that responsibility, and I guess we are moving towards that slowly, but gradually we are moving towards it. Yeah.
Great, great.
We also have a question from our audience online.
Sure.
Well, the question is, can you please explain or give me a detailed different characteristics and importance on how to grow in leadership?
Wow. So leadership is not just a skill anymore, it's a journey. It's a long process. And if you want to build yourself as a good leader, the first thing, like how I always say, start with yourself. Leadership is about people, and the only thing that you can relate to people is when you are being your authentic self.
Yes.
So leadership starts with you. Be self-aware. Who you are, what are your aspirations, what are your passion, what are your strengths, what are your flaws, what are your triggers, what are your patterns, what are the emotions that you go through. I think once you know yourself, you are in a better position to empathize with others.
True.
And trust me, empathy is a game changer. It's a good skill, it's a bad skill, both.
Yes.
It's a good skill because then you know other people's perspective. But it's a bad thing because you're always going to give a benefit of doubt to everyone.
Makes sense.
So
well, it's more of like managing
absolutely,
it. Yes.
Absolutely. But this skill really helps you to become an effective leader. If you're aiming to manage and if you're aiming to build strong relationships with people around, start building relationship with yourself first.
Perfect.
You made pretty good points, but one thing I really want to ask
Sure.
Sandra
Oh,
about this.
I am ready.
It's a Brazilian style that I did. About the gaps, like Aditi talked about like the Deutsche Bank and what is happening in corporate. But I want to know, like, since you had a lot of time with pretty young professionals coming to you, and probably you have a lot of like successful stories, but how do you perceive the gap is there in the market to turn a specialist or whomever following to become a leader, to empower themselves? What is the gap, like, apart from the technology?
let me start a little earlier because there were some nice arguments where I was like, that's it at Deutsche Bank. Interesting. When I think about my past career, things were quite different there. Like, for example, I always had the feeling that leaders were seen as now I'm going to drop a German word that you will never forget, eierlegende Wollmilchsau. We're going to try this later. It's basically something where you say, okay, a leader has to have everything. He or she has to be like empathetic, but also like expert-wise, she or he has to be able to do everything, right? So this one person with all of the skills, which is something that is just not possible, you know? And this, like, let's call it vulnerability to also see that, of course, me as Sandra, as a leader, I'm not perfect, and it's okay if I'm not perfect, and if it's okay not to know everything, but to have certain ways of dealing with it and also asking for help, even though you are a leader. And this has changed dramatically. And I used to experience this at my company in a very like stoic way. Like nobody ever dared saying that he or she is not able to do things. And I'm not with this company anymore, so I don't have the insights if this has changed, but what I feel with my clients nowadays is that leaders are opening up more and more because they are so overwhelmed. They feel that they cannot make it anymore. So we are talking a lot about participation, about let's do it together. Let's see the team members not only as the ones who have to do things from here to there, but giving them space, opening up for bring in your ideas, and let's try to make something bigger together.
Interesting.
And leaders, especially leaders who like used to be leaders for a longer time, are struggling hard with this because it, of course, changes everything of how they see things. All of a sudden, they are allowed to say, sorry, I don't know how to do this. They are allowed or even forced to say, could you please help me because you are the expert. Yes. And this definitely makes a completely change to how we work together. And also this idea of, you asked me how can we basically make people become leaders even though they probably don't have the skills or they probably also don't want to become leaders. I mean, how often do we have this? Also coming from my former career at the corporate company, becoming a leader was the only chance of proceeding in your career ladder. You know, so if you were like willing to step up the ladder, you just had to pretend that you of course want to become a leader because it's cool to become a leader, even though you probably didn't even know what does it mean to become a leader and do I have the skills. And then sometimes it happened that the best experts all of a sudden became leaders, and they were the worst leaders ever because they just did not have the leadership skills. And nobody like dared telling them because all of a sudden they were in this position where you stop giving feedback because you don't give feedback to your leaders. You know, so what I found out is that, and this is of course something that I can do in my position nowadays, where I'm more or less the external person who is always probably asked to really say what is going on. So I'm basically trying to bring this up, that there is some skills that this person, this leader, doesn't have, and that we have to work on them, and in order to make things change. Sometimes I get questions like, Sandra, how do I do it? I need some more responsibility in my team. And we talked about it, and they said they're going to do it, and they don't do it. Why don't they do it? What is the plan there? And of course, there is not this one idea. You just have to do it like this, and then everything's going to be good. It's so much about this team setup. It's about this. Who do you, as a leader, want to be, and how do you see your team members? And if like psychological safety is one word that is like getting bigger and bigger. If they feel like, okay, I am seen as a person, and my leader knows what I'm good at, but he also knows what I'm not so good at, and we together try to evolve and to make the most out of our potential, then things are coming together. And this is what I'm working on, and where I see loads of work, because even though we seem to be in a transition for quite a long time already, we are by far not where we want to be.
Do you think that's subjectively different from person to person because of their backstories and experiences, or disabilities? Or do you think that there is ever be an individual that cannot become a leader? And when I say leader, I mean, in that sense of a music conductor, since you're coming from Austria.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be like professional in one or two or like 5 instruments. They should know how to conduct 150 people for 3 hours, 4 hours, 10 hours of like two days tour. So this power, where this comes from, how they train themselves, or how they trained with a coach or professor that knows how to turn their potentials into action to make them a leader.
Well, actually, I think the starting point is that you really want this, because of course things change dramatically from you being an expert to you being a leader, and all of a sudden you don't play all of those instruments, but you're just standing there and conducting, you know? So if you really want this, that's the first step, I guess.
The knowledge.
The decision, I'd say.
Decision.
The decision, right. To really want to say, yes, I want to go this way, and I'm also fine with letting go of my expertise, or I bring it in when I'm asked for it, or I bring it in when I feel it's needed now, but I don't push it over or pull it over my co-workers, right? And of course, there is ways of training leaders, of course. I mean, leadership development is a very big thing, and there is better or not so good ways of doing it, and definitely it's a very individualistic thing, you know, so not each and every like training goes along with each and every person, of course. But for sure, you can make bad leaders to better leaders. But if there is somebody who doesn't really want it and who doesn't really have the, let's put it like this, doesn't really have the skills, you won't ever bring him to a really great leader where people follow like automatically because he or she is just the way she or he is, you know? That's at least my feeling, and this is what ruins so much if you think of like big companies where you have the succession planning, talent management, and sometimes when I think about my former times, sometimes somebody got a leader just because he was with the company for 10 years. And now it was just his or her time to become a leader. Well, yes, if that is the best way of doing it, I don't know. And you can ruin so much if you have like the wrong person in the leadership position. And if you find it out then, that probably I was promoted, I'm in leadership position, and I find out, oops, I didn't even want it, and I feel I can't do it.
Yeah.
There is no way back because you lose your face, you know, that is what normally happens, and you don't dare talking about it, so you just try to make out the best of it, and then you are super like unhappy, and of course your co-workers or your team members are too.
Absolutely. So then that is a personal decision and very subjective to the individual.
I'd say so.
Wonderful. I have a question from Aditi. About the corporate, how do you see, first of all, in leadership and management, the differences there? What is the gap in corporate, first of all? Well, we know that many things changed after pandemic, but there's still, probably you see those gaps in corporates.
Yeah.
What are those?
I think I'm going to pick up one of the points which Sandra mentioned, that there is a huge gap in building leaders today. And probably from a corporate standpoint and from the HR standpoint, we are taking a lot of initiatives to identify those gaps. We are running a lot of pulse surveys, doing 360 feedback to understand and gather feedback from everyone about that leader, not just from their juniors, but also from their sub-juniors, their seniors, from the people, getting 360, you know, holistic view of what they think about. And also looking at ways by which we can transform them. So leadership, like you, Sandra, correctly mentioned, that it's something that you need to first accept that you really want to be a leader, right? And it starts when you start putting them into situations and positions where they start diving in deeper and reflecting on who they are and what they want to achieve.
Sorry, just like as a parenthesis here.
Yes.
Should they actually say it or like pursue it, or you see them by their KPIs that they have a potential, so then let's talk to them?
So we follow both approaches. We have the KPIs. KPIs help us in understanding what is expected from them. But to bring them to that level, we first need to have the conversation with them, whether they really have the potential or not, right? If they aspire to be a leader, good. But do they have that potential? Yes or no? Maybe, right? So what we try to do is that we try to have those conversations to understand how much is the gap, what is the aspiration, what are the challenges they are facing. Probably they want to do it. There are still certain challenges, and that's where mentoring and coaching comes in place. Our leaders also in today's time need mentors and coaches. They want someone to guide them. They want someone to show them the real mirror of what is happening, how they need to maneuver through the conversation, how they need to build that relationship with everyone. So it's more of a reflection-based journey for the leaders today, I would say that way.
Oh, interesting.
Well, we can have a follow-up question to that,
Absolutely.
stating like, do you think, because a lot of companies out there nowadays usually do their performance trainings or leadership advancement courses online, because through the pandemic era, most of the workstations were online and everybody focused on building up something which was completely virtual. So do you think that makes a very key difference of making it in person over online? And is there any key leadership skills that they can grasp through it in both these platforms?
Sure. So like how I said, pandemic has changed everything, and it has changed our learning and development strategy as well.
Yeah.
With all the online portals available, you have Coursera, you have other online platforms where you can pick up courses. You can learn the skill from the conceptual standpoint, but when it comes to application, you still need that additional support.
Yes.
And that's where we start learning, when we start designing the learning journeys, which is again a hybrid model, wherein we are providing them the concepts to learn, which is required for you to behave like a leader. But how can we give you the opportunities to showcase that leadership style? So like when I work on my design, especially for leaders, I ensure that there are some practical labs opportunity to be provided to people, wherein they can express themselves, they can talk about challenges, they can have those discussions that, okay, this is the issue, this is how I dealt with it, what has been the gap. Again, mentoring and coaching, a lot of mentoring and coaching, doing a lot of self-assessment. I think that's the best way to bring a person to that level, because you can't say that, okay, this is something which is missing in you. Let them assess themselves. Let them see where's the gap, and I think that's the beautiful nudge for the learners to bring them on board in their learning journey.
Yeah. A continuation to this, to Sandra. Sandra, do you really think that, keeping up with this performance coaching with teams and also with workspace managers, is it necessary for them to have a continuous coaching onto this particular aspect so that they can keep up with the coming up new trends in the market, and they can emphasize on a better workspace development and also a better leadership in the coming future?
Absolutely. I think, it will become more and more of a must. Just think of sports, for example. I love to use sports analogies. Like I'm very much into tennis, and if you think about Roger Federer, who is like my one and only favorite tennis player, he also he was world number one for ages and won so many big tournaments. Nevertheless, he had a coach. So this, we know this from sports. It's super normal, and for business, it is not so much. We are slowly getting there, especially in Europe. It was something, which happened very rarely, I'd say. Nowadays, it's slowly but steadily evolving, because people see that even though they might be the most experienced leaders, they are still always just having their own perspective. And to have somebody who broadens this perspective, to bring in some new views, some new impulses, whatever, just totally makes a difference. And so yes, I definitely recommend everybody to go with a coach, just to not to say I'm not capable of doing it on my own. That's not the point. But I might have much more potential in me, and I want to unfold it with this person, who's trying to make me better.
Perfect. So
may I just add something, because I was so getting back in my personal work life. In my corporate, it was such a long journey from taking the decision, okay, I want to become a leader one day, in and in the end, really being a leader. It was like, I don't know, probably 8 years, something like
Wow.
really long. So there was a tremendously long way of going through the one training, the other training. Then you always had those like once a year, there's performance reviews where you in the end had to be seen by all of the leaders around your department. And then slowly but steadily you went from the one talent pool to the other talent pool. And so you really have to take this decision, because otherwise you won't ever make it. And sometimes, what is at least the case in my corporate back then, sometimes you had to also use like your elbows, because otherwise you won't be seen. And this is something which does not go together with my personality, because I always had the feeling like if people see me, they will see me, because I'm what I am and I do what I do. But sometimes in those big companies, that is not enough, you know, and you just have to be fine with, okay, I'm going to go this way. And I'm not saying that the elbow mentality is like still going on, or that it's the same case in Deutsche Bank. I'm just saying that coming to this advice thing, leadership for me turned out to be not a matter of a role that I'm taking on or a position that I'm taking on, but it's more of a mindset. Like I can also be a leader in everyday situations. And this basically also makes me become a better leader after time, because I have so many like real life situations where I just train my leadership skills. And this is what helped me stand those 8 years until I finally became a leader, like officially. It's just
So you were the one that really wanted it to become a leader.
actually interesting also, probably for the students also. I wasn't so sure if I want to become a leader in this company, because I felt that somehow we are not a 100% match, you know. But as I was there, and I somehow felt like, oh, interesting, this career thing, probably I want to go this way. I started to play the game, and then I was in this game, and I just played it, and I didn't like ask myself anymore, do I really like to play this game? So it all of a sudden just was an automatic thing, and I found out that I don't like it even more, but I couldn't change it. Up until a point where I was like, okay, I think now is the time to just leave the company, because I feel like there is much more to find out. And nevertheless, I'm super happy and grateful for the time that I had, because I learned so much in this company. And I'm also very happy that I basically decided, okay, that was like more than 10 years of this company. Now it's time for something new. And I'm definitely only where I am now because of this experience. So no regrets, definitely not. But just to be aware and to really like question what you're doing, and not continue doing it just because you did it the last couple of years is very, very important. And again, a coach comes in play. Sometimes you just don't see it.
True.
Well, was that the transformation moment that happened, and then your podcast Friede, Freude and Pustekuchen,
That's good. That was good.
Right? Started like to come to the picture, and then you started like covering the team dynamics. I think if you give us more information about that.
Yeah, sure.
And,
actually, the podcast came way later, like when I was then self-employed already as a solo entrepreneur, as a team coach, and like I had quite some experience already when I decided like there is so many super interesting persons out there who hardly ever talk about their personal challenges, their personal conflicts. It's always like this bullshit bingo thing that we play in the business world sometimes, you know. Yeah. So let's make a podcast together with my co-host where we try to dig a little deeper, where we really want to get to know the person behind. And yeah, this is where in the end we do some like interview style podcast where we dig deep, and people are very, very happy to share their stories, because sometimes they say, well, what a nice interview. I haven't ever talked so openly, like in an open space, more or less, you know? So they are just not used to it, but they're willing to do it.
Interesting, like in this business environment, leadership and even like self-training and coaching, in the recent years, I figured like this is a question for both of you, that I've seen many examples of people that they felt unheard. Whatever position they had, whatever status they had, if they were students, they were like, you know, working in corporate, they were working like on their personal project, they were parents, something that I've seen it even more after post-pandemic. I want to see like if you have any interesting stories about that while you were like coaching professionals, or while you had like an encounter with a colleague in the Deutsche Bank, and is that true in corporate as well?
So I think I can share my personal story.
Absolutely.
Because I, as of now, I've not come across in Deutsche Bank, but then yes, I can share my personal story.
Wonderful.
My journey started in 2009, wherein it was the first time I took my personality test. Right? We know MBTI. Absolutely.
The best one.
Perfect. So I took my first time, I did my MBTI, and I was amazed to see the kind of a person I am. And that moment I decided that I want to be a leader, because I fall into the category of ENFJ.
Wow.
So I knew that I can make a difference through my personality, and that's where I started building in. In the HR fraternity, we have this concept called Johari's window, right? Every individual has a blind side, okay? Sometimes you even don't know who you are and what's your capability, but the others can see you.
True.
And that's where the feedback comes in place. And that's where we encourage that always take feedback from people around, because sometimes you don't know who you are and others are able to gauge it.
True.
Right, and that's where the journey of leadership starts, and you get to know, okay, I have these skills, I have done my SWOT analysis, but at the same time there are certain things which I was not even aware. But someone told me and said that probably Aditi, you're good at this, and I was never aware that I'm good with this. And that's where I started building on my leadership skills, that okay, I know I can inspire people, I know I can empower people, but how do I do that? And that's where I started my leadership journey for myself.
Interesting. Sandra, can I ask the same?
Sure. Like you asked me if I took the decision to want to become a leader at my company back then, and I said, well, I wasn't sure whether I want to be a leader in this environment, and this is the main aspect in this environment, and there I wasn't sure, but nevertheless I felt like there is a leader in me. I can feel it, and it wants to get out, and I basically try to go this way all my life. And was there a specific thing that happened, or something where I was like, okay, this was the changing point in my life? I think it was a process, definitely. So there was not this one time a thing where I decided to change everything. But probably it's interesting to just tell the story. I had some severe back pain in 2018 something, and I found out that probably I cannot follow my passion playing tennis so much anymore, which is why I took a class where I basically like I was an apprentice for becoming a tennis coach, that was just out of my personal interest. And this was somewhat of a game changer, because there I met somebody who was like, Sandra, we got to build up something, we just got to do something with tennis. We're gonna like switch from tennis, the white sports for the rich ones, to tennis, the team sports. We're gonna make it big. We're gonna call it Tenergy and stuff, So that was something where she was telling me, let's build up something together. And this is when I found out, interesting. Yeah, let's try to build up something there. And I got so much into this. I loved it so much, even though Tenergy doesn't exist anymore. But nevertheless, this was the one situation, because of my back pain, where I was like, probably I cannot play tennis myself so much anymore. So I want to teach other people, because I just love the sports, being around it and stuff. Then I got to know this person. I found out, building up things myself is fun, and I can be like a hell of a leader there. And all of a sudden, this summer got bigger and bigger. I started to work part-time in my corporate company anymore, like not full-time, but only part-time. I tried out some new things. I helped out in a startup. I also did some voluntary work where I did not get paid at all. The good thing was I had, of course, my part-time job, which was quite well paid anyway, so I could like afford it. And then there was this time where I felt like now is the time. So the process was just over, and then I told my my bosses, and they were like, what? No, you can't. Think of it again. And I was like, no, I've been thinking about it for the last 8 years. I'm done now. And ever since, I haven't ever regretted it. And I feel like I'm where I I'm right where I am now, you know. So it hasn't ever felt like, in the past I was talking about being authentic and stuff, but I wasn't authentic, to be honest. I always felt like I'm pushed into this box, more or less. Sometimes I was like doing this in order to make it my box, you know.
Personal branding.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Yeah, I just couldn't escape. You don't step into the office and you are all of a sudden another person, you know. And this was just the case, and yeah. And I've been hearing so many stories from former colleagues who also decided to change at least their professional life, and they're doing it, and they are happy now. So that is not a change your job or go and get yourself self-employed, whatever. That is not the case. But if you feel like it's not a fit anymore, or it has never been a fit, they're changing something, and don't be afraid, because if you know what you want, you're definitely going to find a way. And the worst thing, that is what I kept telling me, the worst thing that could happen is, well, if my self-employment doesn't work, well, then I'm going to find another job for sure, you know.
The moment of truth. The moment that you know, it's never enough. I can't find it anywhere but with me, probably. As a lecturer, I think that's sometimes it's funny because without my students putting any effort into like real leadership effort, after 5 minutes of the given task, you as a lecturer, you see that they're, without even them aware of it, they're just like, taking charge, taking responsibility, choose their team members, and they start initiating, asking questions, and they go silent. And you see that everybody is sitting around them. But I want to ask you something, then after that we move to the interesting part, which we want to know what is the bridge between you, the version that you both now at, and the version in the beginning of this journey. Because we have so many like audience and students that probably they are the same place that you've been many years ago, and there are messages in your stories, backstories, and how you can connect it for them to listen. Maybe it can enlighten their pathway. My question, both of you, if I want to ask you, what is leadership? Is it only about job, professional job, career, or leadership means in every aspect of the life of that person?
Personally, for me, leadership is for me, leadership is for everyone. Like, it's not specific to my role. It's about how I portray myself and how I put across myself to everyone. Am I able to inspire people around? Yes, I'm a good leader. Am I able to encourage my people around? Perfect. Am I able to empower them? Am I able to bring an impact in their life? I am a leader. I don't need to train them on certain skill. But if I'm able to bring them up, it's a success for me. Right? So for me, leadership is very personal. It has got nothing to do with my role. It has got nothing to do with my title, nothing to do with my technical skills, but it is my personality, which is I am this as a leader.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Tied to your personality.
Yeah.
Sandra, do you believe the same? Is it
I'll
tied
just
to your
sign
personality?
exactly what you just said. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And this is probably also something that we sometimes forget if we're too much into this like business mind thinking, you know.
Absolutely.
Be a leader if you feel like you are a leader, and you're definitely going to make a difference for sure. And if it's just the people around you, and this could be so like heartwarming and also giving you so much energy if you see that people are following you and coming from this. Why do people follow me in this or that era? You can derive so much for your professional career and have this like real examples of leadership, you know. Otherwise, I remember one time when I was in an assessment center for the leadership career at my company, and they were always asking for examples. And sometimes I thought, oh gosh, I knew that they were asking for examples, and I felt like I just can't tell them what I did some
Yeah.
what leadership style I have with my tennis team. You know, they want to have some like real life or real work examples.
Yeah.
And sometimes these were then a little made up. They were not so much like, they were not giving them so much insights into my kind of leadership, just because I thought this is what they want to hear, which was absolutely nonsense. But I was just stuck in there in my former me, you know.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, we'll come up with the perspective from students, because for BSBI students, especially who is wanting to get out there in the job market, do you think there is any particular skills that they have to prioritize themselves in the upcoming next 6 months for them to be industry ready, or as a personal brand be ready to target their rightful recruiters and build up a grateful professional
Or
life?
to find their place.
Yeah, or to find their place in the market.
I think for me, from my journey, what I've learned and what I see in the market, I have the exposure of both the cultural, local cultural, because I have recently moved from India to Germany. And I see now both the sides of the world, which is back in India and now here from a global
And behind the
perspective.
scenes, she was so happy.
Oh yeah.
We talked.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I told him that the purpose I moved to Germany was that I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone. And I'm here, so.
And the weather.
Yes, and the weather. So yes, for me, I think what works in the market and what is going to take you a long way, I think you can prioritize focusing on your executive presence. When I say executive presence, it is about your break down the elements of communication skills, which means don't focus on just communication, focus on the elements which is have effective listening skills, which sometimes and most of the times we ignore, right? So how do we develop our listening skills? How do we develop our articulation skills? Are you able to put across your thoughts in a structured way? Bang on. You're there in the market, right? It's going to help you in both ways, personal as well as your professional development. Third, another element which is probing. We always say that no question is stupid, but asking the right question at the right time is a skill. And you need to develop that. So probing skills, I believe that, and like how I learned very late, learn the art of small talks, having quick conversations, prepare your elevator pitch. How do you quickly introduce yourself to people? How do you portray yourself as a brand, right? Work on balancing your prominence and gravitas. When you're speaking to leaders, you have a different personality. When you're speaking to junior folks, you have a different personality. So how do you put across that? And I would really recommend start reading your body language. It talks a lot. And if you are able to read your body language, I think you will be in a better position to read other people as well. And then your communication style, your leadership style will definitely change when you're having people around. So I think from that perspective, I would just say that 6 months or 3 months, whatever time you have, work on your executive presence. Put
Not the
across
language,
yourself.
though.
Oh, no, of course. See, these are all technical expertise. I'm not getting technical. But yes, in addition to technical expertise, I would just say just work on your executive presence. Put across your authentic self in the market.
That was so structured and wonderful. I really
That's
enjoyed
very
it.
true.
Thank you.
And Sandra, I want to add an add-on question to that. Looking towards 2025 and beyond, do you think with the lot of wonderful skills that Aditi mentioned already, is there any particular critical skills that young professionals must learn to, remain relevant out there in the market?
Actually, the one thing that always popped into my mind when we were giving this like go-to list, which was like really wow, I was like, yes, and don't forget to build relationships.
Yeah.
Because what I found out throughout my professional and also like personal life, you can of course do all of what you just said in a perfect manner, but if you're in the wrong time at the wrong place, and the company is not looking for a job, whatever, not looking for somebody for a job, then you don't have a chance for this time being, But if you start very early building up this relationship, go to networking events, talk to people. Like what I've learned is people love to talk about themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And out of this talking about themselves, you can get so super useful insights. So
Yeah.
just talk to people. They will definitely give you some advices. And then you start basically already building up this relationship to the one or the other person, because I found out that sometimes, or most of the time, jobs are not, you don't find a job by just applying on a professional job opening, but by like having the right people in your sphere, and by telling them, listen, I'm looking for a job, talking to diverse people from diverse backgrounds, and all of a sudden you might have this one chance where you have to be prepared then.
Absolutely.
And have your pitch ready, have your CV, whatever ready,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But this doesn't happen coincidentally sometimes,
Yeah.
or it does happen coincidentally. But then you have to be ready, and this is something which you could force, basically.
Yeah.
Well, very interesting questions from our online viewers out there. What is the difference between a leader and a manager? And how to build up that development of becoming a manager over a leader, and how can it evolve together?
I think this user just joined us very late.
Yeah.
This question is the beginning of the podcast. But
Yes.
So for me, the only difference between a good manager and a good leader is your emotional quotient. If you are able to understand people from their perspective, you know, like how I said, empathy, the definition of empathy is that you put yourself in other people's shoes. But are we really ready to do that? No. We sometimes ask people, how are you? But are we ready to listen to them, how they are? Are we ready to accept their answers? Sometimes no. So how I am projecting myself and learning that emotional quotient makes me a good leader and not a good manager. Like how I said, everybody can be a good manager, but you can't be a good leader all the time. It takes a lot of process, it is a journey, and the only difference that differentiates between a good manager and a good leader is your emotional quotient.
Well,
I can add something to that. It was wonderful. This is just like this chocolate chip right next to it. I think the main thing between, like, the main difference between being a manager, somebody that takes responsibility, and a leader with leadership skills is to have this ability of making difference between perception and perspective.
Absolutely.
So their perception can be subjective, can be personal.
Yeah.
I feel this way towards this company, this colleague, this is my feeling. That doesn't mean that this is a right opinion,
Right.
or like anybody else can act on it based on like this advice that I'm giving. But a leader, not only they have their own perception, they have this ability to get out of their human form body
Absolutely.
and look at the world from others people's perspective. This gives them an advantage
Yeah.
that they can see everything from different angles and stay unbiased,
Yeah.
and then start being empathic, give opinions that works.
Absolutely.
I think.
yeah.
Bang on.
Yes.
I probably have
that was really a chocolate in the cake.
Awesome. Like I really like both views on managers and leaders. And what I always have in mind that for me it's a huge difference being a manager versus being a leader. And you don't have to be both. Probably you're a perfect manager. And also together with this definition goes, sometimes you need managers for a certain position, and sometimes you need leaders for a certain position. You know, and sometimes for a certain situation where a company is in, you need more of this leadership style person, and sometimes you need more of a manager style person where you have to get things done. Basically, you know, not giving the huge vision of what we want to be. And this is just something where you have to somehow get a feeling of, do I want to be more of this management or manager style person, or do I need this kind of style now? Or more of the leadership style person, you know? And it's okay not to be both. If you can do it, it's of course brilliant, but it's definitely a difference.
Yeah.
How long time do we have?
Well, we are slowly before we close.
Wow. Okay. So let's just like go to our short questions for our students here.
Sure.
which they're like watching us online, and we're even like here, face to face, asking for both of you, and I insist I'm looking for a very short answer because then they can take notes. I know that you have a lot of experience, and I don't think in one episode we can cover it all. There are a lot more to it, but now I need the short answers.
Yes.
So, best career advice in one sentence to the students.
Should I go? Okay. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Stay hungry.
Stay hungry, stay foolish. To learn something new, always be ready to unlearn that first. Yeah.
Like next, Sandra will use a Austrian proverb because you started this tradition, and then we have translation.
Nice.
Okay.
My career advice: don't follow the money. Follow your passion.
Lovely.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Well, what about one book / resource that every young professional should explore?
You want to go first? I
Up
gotta
to
think.
you.
Do please. I need another second.
So maybe I can go first.
You go
then.
first.
Okay, so I would recommend everyone to go through The Fifth Discipline. It's by Peter Senge. It talks about organizational ecosystem, and once you read that, you'll get a very different perspective about organizations and business. It's going to help you in developing your strategic mindset, your system thinking, your collaboration, and it's going to help you work with people better. So, The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice one. I'm ready now, so I'm gonna take over. I'd go with Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last.
Wow.
It's actually, just a lot about what we all also talked.
Wow.
Leaders sometimes just have to step back and let the others eat first before they take their share. And this is somewhat of a skill that you've got to learn or somehow,
Lovely.
yeah.
And one more question.
Yeah.
Both of you were putting accent on networking. Let's imagine that you've been a student. You've been like in the beginning of your journey. Both in Germany, you came from like, another country to this country, and well, you as well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So, where you've been exactly starting your networking after all these experiences? Like going to use an app, like we have different apps. They're not our sponsors, but like Meetup.
Yeah.
Or how they can find their place in their own community. So, where you would start your community, yours or join a community to start networking?
So I think as students, you have ample of opportunities to network. One is, of course, connect with your alumni, see where they are working, try to build that network with them so that you get your way into that industry. They are able to get you connected to some more people, right? Within your group only, you can start doing informal catch-ups with everyone. Get in touch with your professors to know what are the other groups which are there. Personally, since I have moved from a different country and I wanted to do network, what worked for me, and I think it's going to work well for you as well, is start joining communities, start being a part of network communities. Like I'm from L&D fraternity, I try to be a part of every platform, almost every platform wherein all L&D people are coming together.
Can you name 5 of them, please?
Oh.
A lot of them.
So I got in connect with all the communities through LinkedIn.
LinkedIn?
Yes. I have tried to establish my own brand through LinkedIn. And I
Yes.
got connections, and I joined communities through LinkedIn itself. Within the organization, I have started doing quick coffee catch-ups with my leaders to introduce myself or what I do and what I can bring on to the table. And I guess that's what you can also start doing. LinkedIn is the best way to do that. Of course, you can get connected with them. So I feel these are some of the ways that you can actually leverage to get in touch with. Of course, you have us. We can help you find a way to get connected to the people from your own field and fraternity.
Thank you. There is an
Yeah.
opportunity. So
Yeah.
after our questions, we can start networking here and
Exactly.
see how it works. And Sandra, thank you.
For corporate networking definitely that is the go-to, like having those lunch talks and stuff.
Yeah.
Perfect. And my networking, I found out, has changed completely now that I'm self-employed. And what I would recommend there is so many events that are for free, and there specifically I would recommend to subscribe to the FOMO Berlin newsletter. Probably you've heard of it. That's fantastic. You could basically go to an event, at least one each and every day, because that somehow pushes you out of your comfort zone. Because if you stay too much within your like university peers and stuff, yeah, probably you're gonna find some nice persons, but if you feel like, okay, this doesn't feel so nice at the moment, but nevertheless, my goal is to talk to one person. This person might make the difference.
Yeah.
And of course, the second thing would be to come to 12 Minutes Me, which is next on August 26th. Of course, you're all invited. It's
Perfect.
for free. You're going to have a perfect night, and definitely some nice people to connect
Oh,
with.
absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. Do you have any questions,
Well,
students?
for students, I just wanted to ask, what is that one inspiring person in your life who pushed you all the way to be who you are today?
It won't be fair if I just name one, because I have two important people in my
Like
life.
If you would say one, I would have just like said,
No.
I need to
No.
find them.
Not at all. So there are two people in my life who has made a lot of difference, and what I am today, I give complete reward to both of them, and I'm really happy to announce their names as well. One is Sapna Mudgil. She's the director of NIT Foundation. She has inspired me from a personal perspective to how to be a good leader. And there is another person named Rohin Nadir. He's the capability head of KPMG, and he has challenged me every time. So what I am today as an L&D professional, he has helped me push my boundaries. He has shown that utmost faith in me and helped me understand the deep insights of L&D function and how L&D supports the entire ecosystem in the corporate setting. So I think I'm going to give the entire ownership and gratitude to both of them.
Perfect. What about you, Sandra?
Actually, I must admit that it's also like two persons,
Lovely.
one in the corporate world. And the funny thing here is that I won't name her name in this case because it wasn't a shining example. Like, I didn't like her so much. She used to be a former boss of mine who made life quite hard back then.
Oh.
But nevertheless, she formed a lot of who I am today, and I know that I'm much better now because of her.
Lovely.
So think of it, probably your like worst enemies could be your friends later. That is probably the learning that I took out of this. And in my like solopreneur life, it's Daniel Enz, who's my mentor, who is here for me each and every time I have a question. I want to know how he's done it, and he's like really made it. He's a sales coach from Switzerland and very successful, and basically he has all the answers that I'm searching for, and he's always there and cool guy. Lovely.
Wonderful. I think there's time to open up questions
Yes.
from the students.
Now the floor is open up for students if they would like to ask any questions to our beloved speakers.
I have in fact two questions.
Oh, absolutely.
I have two questions. One is to you, and the second one is for general. As you mentioned, you are coming from a different country here, and how how do you play, or how do you think the cross-cultural management in the leadership ladder is crucial for anyone to get accustomed to the management?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last sentence.
Management to grow in a ladder, yeah. So cross-cultural management, cross-cultural leadership understanding, how much do you think is important for a person coming from a different background of a country and culture?
Lovely. I think what I have realized in the last 15 years, and especially these 9-10 months that I've been in Germany, Organization and leadership appreciates the person who you are and not what you do. So whatever background, whatever culture you're coming from, they really appreciate what values, what principles, what kind of contribution you are able to make. So I would just say that when I talk about the cultural ladder, especially in a new country, just don't think from that perspective. Think about who you are and what you bring to the table. And they're going to appreciate you more, trust me.
Okay, thank you. The second question is very general one. Yeah, in Europe, most of the executive positions, the average age is more than 50. Yeah, it's very common across globe. So, what advice do you give to the youngsters or the digital natives to become a professional leader in the corporate? For instance, people are very, very much aware of digital technologies, empathy, now that people are exposed to global happenings. So in particular, like any specific, say 3 or 4 advices that you can give to all of us, the students, to become a leader.
I just have to re-ask the question. So it's how to cope with the old style management guys?
No. The average age
Is quite high.
Yeah. It's like 50 plus, yeah. So people like the students or like 30s, 40s are still aspiring to become a leader, the executive level, the C-suite cadre. So what advice, any points, any niche skills that we have to bring in to the management or the table? So we would like to hear from your perspective, what would be that? Any advices?
I think I'm still growing. But of course, I haven't reached 50, but I'm still on the way. And what has worked for me is that I'm still a learner. And when I put across this perspective to my leaders in the corporate setting, that I am a learner and I want to grow and I want to learn more and more, irrespective of what title I hold or irrespective of what is the age, I show that credibility when when I share across that point with them, right? For example, if I want to express that I want to hold the next level or I want to move to the next level and they feel that, okay, probably this is not your age, you're very young for that, right? I try to showcase my work, I showcase myself to prove that it's not about the age that I'm bringing onto the table, it's about the competency that I'm trying to bring on the table. And especially when I'm young enough, I'm not saying young enough, but yes, I am still young enough. But I still say that I bring a fresh perspective. Like how I mentioned earlier, be your authentic self. And when you put across this thought to the leadership, they really appreciate you. They really help you to bring up. Of course, there are certain norms that every organization follows. But then at the same time, don't hesitate. I think in one of the sentences, Sandra also mentioned, don't try to fit in. You don't have to shrink yourself. You are who you are and be the way you are. And just put it across all unapologetically to them. That's I would say. Yeah.
In short, you can be the exception. That's what she said. Let's see how.
Just believe in yourself. Yeah. Just believe in yourself.
My advice would be to not count too much on the age aspect.
Yeah.
It's probably sometimes if you get to know about the company, you get a feeling of the culture that might be there.
Yeah.
And I think that if you are really honest to yourself, you feel that whether this culture could be a fit or not, and even if there is like super old leaders, they could be like super great with regard to their experience and with regards to, I want to have somebody who's younger, like also teaching me things, like this reverse mentoring thing, And if you find these matches, it could be a perfect fit, and you can learn from each other. And this then gives you, of course, a chance to follow your path also, because this leader might see then what is in you and might help you going your way.
Yeah.
And in the end, age again is just a number. You know, there's the cool old ones and the not so cool young ones.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions, viewers?
Okay. Let's consider a scenario as a manager of a very large cooperative with several executives like logistics, finance, procurement, and so on and so forth. You, as a manager, having this huge managerial experience, what are the advice that, the principles a manager in such capacity must uphold to ensure the work of all these executives are geared and meshed smoothly and lead towards the KPI of the overall objective of the organization. Am I clear?
I would appreciate if you rephrase it.
Yeah,
Yes.
me too. Please.
Okay, you are a manager of a very large cooperative with departments such as logistics, finance, procurement, and you have to ensure that procurement, logistics, all the work, mesh smoothly and gear towards the overall objectives. So what are the principles will you advise such manager in such capacity to uphold in order to be able to achieve the objective?
So you're basically asking from a manager perspective?
Yeah,
Okay.
because you are managing all this executive and you have to ensure, and in most cases, all of their work have to meshed
Yeah.
in producing the overall objective of the entity. Probably procurement have to purchase, and then before the purchase is done, they will need finance, and logistics have to move, and so on and so forth. And I know there are KPIs,
Yeah.
that regard all these processes. As a manager, what are the principles you have to uphold, you have to have in mind in order to ensure that that's a success?
I think your question is more from a managerial perspective,
Yeah.
not
Exactly.
leadership.
Yeah.
Not
And the other
leadership.
thing is a managerial perspective has its own practices, from procurement, from resource management, HR management, financial management. They all have to work together and depends on the kind of domain the business in. And if the business is a traditional business, the management approach is different. If they're mechanized and digitalized, then it's different. If it's product is different. If it's B2B is different. If it's in Europe is different. If it's in Asia is different. So managerial is just very subjective to where the company is, what the establishment is, and what they do actually, and what's their process. They just have a shipment once a month. They have a shipment every day, and what's the size? So I don't think that's our guests can.
Actually, just one thing came to my mind. I would go with have the right people in place and try to have a culture where people are daring, telling you the truth, even though the KPIs are probably not in place. So that you as the leader or the manager have the chance to take action. That is just one general thing that
Absolutely
pops up.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. So that was the end of a very fruitful session of Voices of Impact, empowering future leaders.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the inspiring conversation.
Appreciate it.
Thank
I
you too.
appreciate it.
And we really thank you for your time, your effort, and your inspiring word of knowledge that you shared with the student community and also every others who are in here for this beautiful podcast. Thank you all for joining us online and also offline. And we wish you all a very wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good job.